Hi, the date is the 28th of April, 2026. I've been wanting to make a video going deeper into boundaries for a while, and I talk a lot about putting up boundaries as a form of self respect, and I talk a lot about using boundaries instead of expectations. But a big part is well, the biggest part I think is how other people interact with your boundaries and how you should frame that. So, um, a common mistake is when people try to predict, people or prepare other people for their boundaries, so they go and tell them their boundaries. But you should not tell people your boundaries. Um, Hold up. You should not tell people your boundaries before they kind of pass through them, because obviously there's the specific boundaries that most people know and that most people won't break, but for your more specific boundaries, like my boundary is people have to value me as a person if they want to hang out. That's a boundary that most people have, but I didn't used to have it, so now I have to communicate to the people because it's a new boundary, it's a new thing. And I I learned through experience that you shouldn't communicate that before they give you a reason to. Um, First of all, over communicating your boundaries leads to kind of puts an expectation instead of a boundary, which leads to too much expectations and pressure on other people. Um, Boundaries are changing. So they're changing and evolving as we change and evolve, and then people can get the wrong idea when we've already communicated something to them. And on top of that, what was I saying? Communication. So putting our boundaries into words instead of feelings is not always the best idea, because their their words can't always describe how our boundaries work, and we can easily get them wrong a lot, but there is a way to communicate them. You want to communicate them after they have been crossed or approached, and you can communicate them in a way of mutual exchange where someone else shares their perspective and you share your own. So you say something like, "Hey, um, that kind of made me feel hurt when you did that. You may not have meant badly, but it still made me feel hurt. Um, I kind of like, um, I kind of like, like, that's like my perspective." And let's do an example because it's kind of hard to explain without an example. So let's say someone makes a joke about you, and it's something you're a bit insecure about. You don't say, "My boundary is you can't joke about that." That would be straightforward, but someone could feel attacked by that. What it's better to say is, "When you joked about that, I know you might not have meant it badly, but it made me feel small. I don't really want that kind of humor directed at me." And then it's not like a hard declaration into control. It's more of just letting them know how you're feeling, which is a lot better because people can take that on a lot lighter and remember that, instead of, "Don't joke about that. I don't like when you joke about that. Don't do that. Um, but yeah, it's just it's a really interesting thing because as someone who is now developing new boundaries, um, that kind of I'm becoming someone who has value as a person, which means I'm putting up boundaries from someone who has value as a person, if you get what that means, you know? I'm like filling the role. Um, but I'm having to put up a lot of new boundaries, which I'm learning how to communicate those. And another thing is even it's really important, the communication, but when people say communication is important with boundaries, you think you just want to say them out loud before they even happen. But the key is, so there was this girl. I was talking to this girl, and she um we made plans, and then she said she forgot about those plans and accidentally made plans with someone else. And then I didn't know what to do because she crossed my boundary of seeing my value as a person, because she clearly didn't value enough for me to either set her our plans in her calendar or remember, and then doesn't even value me enough that she was able to make plans with someone else. And if she did it on purpose or on accident, either way, I didn't feel valued, and that's a boundary that was crossed. And so what I wanted to do is, just out of respect for myself, just not message her back and stop talking to her. So I took a few days to think about it. And when I was talking to a friend, he told me about like how you can't expect people to know your boundaries and know certain things, even because and you can't expect people to have the awareness you have, even if people are even if it's like a boundary that like you should normally expect from a normal person, you still have to communicate to see what's going on. So I called her and I was like, "Hey, that kind of hurt, that was kind of like hurt when you did that." And then she apologized and told me, and after I shared my perspective, she shared her perspective, and she was just a bit, out of it. And so, but she did apologize, which means, if you're going to apologize, it means you're not going to do it again. So if she does do it again, then that's something I will have to kind of take it up a notch, but I doubt she will, because, she just was a bit forgetful, and she apologized and made it right, and then she scheduled another hangout that we're going to do. So, it was good, and even though she crossed the boundary and I didn't know what to do out of respect for myself, I communicated it to her. She apologized, made things right, sorted a new time we could hang out, and she made things right. And then hopefully in the future, she won't cross that boundary again. Which is like, that's like the goal, That's like, because you can't always expect people to know your boundaries and that, and you can't tell them beforehand, but with good communication and the right way to share your perspectives, boundaries can actually be really great. Yeah. So that was just what I had on the topic, but yeah. So that's I think that's let me just check my notes to see if I missed anything. And another thing is boundaries. You think you know your boundaries, but we're complicated human beings, and it's not always as simple as we think, because boundaries are something we usually discover through experience. So you can't really announce them beforehand. Let me see. I mean, I guess another thing I put down was it can expose if your boundaries are still weak. If you keep telling someone, please don't do this, don't treat me like that, respect me, Um, and it's more of a reframing. It's not like you're not allowed to treat me with this way. It's if you continue, I will respond differently. I'll step back, I'll stop engaging, and I'll just protect myself. Um, yeah. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading the notes. I probably should have done this a bit more before the video. But yeah, I think I covered off everything. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's just I want to go more deeply into boundaries just because it's really important, and yeah, but yeah, that's the end of the video.